there is only one heart. And in life or in God, everything is one. Now, it is for the sake of conversation that we are breaking it down. So therefore I thought just to present the name heart. And then we can go through the initial expression, initial explanation of it. You know, that once the heart is mature, is all one, and there is no consciousness about it anymore. There is no trying to be this or trying to be that. You are, and you are, and you are, and you are. I was thinking this, the most powerful verb in any language is the verb to be. No? Means to exist. No, when we talk about existence, who was it? Shakespeare said to be or not to be, that's the question. And that's really an important thing. Whether do I exist or I don't exist? As simple as that. And especially if I talk about the I. Does I exist with so much presence of me? I doesn't have so much chance to exist. So it's not so easy for us to simply say I am. To be able to say I am is a very, very powerful statement. Which means free from me.
And that me that you're referring to is the ego, right?
Yeah, and also combination of all the, false thoughts and experience, the falsehood, the wrong natures and false thoughts and false habits, that has nothing to do with the actual life, is a part of my life. Mind constructed my life thing.
Which keeps you separate from what life is.
Yeah, from the whole.
From the whole.
Yeah, and we can't exist separated from the whole anyway.
Yes.
It's impossible.
That's where misery sets in. That's
Absolutely.
where depression sets in.
That's where the stress and anger and hatred and
anxiety,
all the rest of the
absolutely
wrong
They're
things.
byproducts.
Yes.
Byproducts of
separation.
Of separation.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were mentioning before that every problem that we have now in the world is mainly a relationship problem. I quickly look through the newspapers in the morning, or sometimes, watch the news, not very often anymore. I don't see anymore, I cannot find a new cause for the problems. For the past 16, 17 years or something, I was just constantly trying to see if there is any other cause for the problems. And I found that all the problems are problems of relationship, of any level, in ourselves, between our own thoughts and our own deeds, between our own mind and our body, to the level of relationship between the husband and wife and brothers and sisters and parents and children, and then to the families, nations with each other, is all problem of how to relate to each other. And since we all agree that the most important aspect of any relationship, of any kind or any dynamic, is emotional, if the emotional relationships are lacking, forget it. It's doomed to fail. It can be on a best sound economic foundation, best sound social or political foundation, it will fail. We have a history of humanity to prove it.
And enough wars to
and all the wars and crimes
it.
on top. Exactly. Very good. Absolutely. So therefore, we should not lose the sight of the fact that emotional aspects of the relationship are the most important thing. That's what matters. That's what determines whether the relationship is going to last, and more importantly, grow. So my hope through all this is to put the idea that the cause of the problems out there is because of our inability to relate artistically. So if that is true, if we come to agreement that that's the case, and then the immaturity of the heart is a cause of the problem, then the solution for the problems also exists in the mature heart. And in other words, once we develop our hearts, once we are able to live on a daily basis, to develop our hearts. And one point I want to mention here is this. When I became aware of the fact that, I've missed all these opportunities in my life to develop my heart through my childhood and sibling and all that. And I missed a lot. So in other words, there's a lot of emptiness in my emotional body, so to speak, called heart. And how am I going to fix that? How is it possible to repair that? There's no way for me to go back, become 6 months old or 6 years old or 12 years old or 10 years old or whatever, to fill up the things that were supposed to be filled and wasn't.
Right.
My body grew because I can't stop that. Yeah. Sometimes I wish that people's body would only grow according to their heart development.
So I'll be the
Wow,
creator.
that's an interesting point there, Mirdad.
Maybe we would
You're going to be in trouble.
use kindergarten. But then the next realization was that, the first I thought, okay, this looks like I'm doomed, it's a lost opportunity and it's not going to happen. I have to suffer all my life because of it, because I could see the consequences of it. I could see my inability being in this artistic relationship with people. It was just like a uncomfortable something. Inability causes uncomfortable feeling. Then I realized that actually heart is supposed to grow forever. Now I want to mention it again and again. This is so important because this is the best news of all. Best news of all, that heart will grow forever. Therefore love will grow forever. Goodness will grow forever. Beauty will grow forever, That was the best news. Which means that, because it would be very bad if, for example, there was a deadline. Okay, by the time you reach 30 years old or 40 years old or 25, whatever, if you haven't reached it, too bad. You missed it. That would be like we're all doomed then. But then because heart grows forever, and forever is a long time, then I can catch up now. So why is it that I need to catch up now? I have to catch up with understanding that what was it that was missed in the past. Which means what? I did not have enough true child relationship, child love as a child. So how can I gain that child love now? Only by me realizing that when I am in a position of a child. Now it's very difficult, for somebody who's grown up to suddenly say, think that, oh, I can act like a child. I don't mean childish, but with the attitude and the position of the child. It simply manifests in a way of, if someone teaching you something, and there comes the humility I think we were talking about at the beginning. There comes a point of being able to receive with the heart of a child. You say something to a child, the child says, okay, Mom. The younger they are, the easier it is. Okay, Dad. But you say the same thing to an older person who is actually making the same mistake as that child, and they go for hours and weeks and months of self-justification and excuse and accusing you and fight and war and physical abuse. Imagine that. Why? Because simply not being able to be a child. You can be 20 or 60 or 80, doesn't matter. How can we be able to be a child? If we have learned how to be a child. That's why it's so important in that first few years we have enough nourishment to lay a foundation. If you don't have a foundation, you can't build a building. So if that first one is not there, if you're missing, we all have to be sensitive towards that. So in other words, we don't have to rush. And then what comes with that is this sense of, if somebody tells me something, then it couples with a thought that is ingrained inside that I'm not good enough. Then suddenly it's taken as an insult and feels so bad and inferior that you have to just fight against it, and thinking that by fighting against it, now you're having a value, you restored your value, which is a false mind-constructed value to begin with. And then the longer we continue this path and this pattern in our lives, the more miserable and everything becomes, and everything will fall apart. It's not possible to sustain this. It's simply not possible. You know, sometimes the idea, maybe it's a simple idea, that, you know, if you take a table lamp or something and put it into outlet, and then the light comes on. There is no effort needs to be done by the lamp and the light and so on, because it's connected to the source of the power. Now imagine that that source is not, there's no connection there. And this light or lamp needs to create light. It's a lot of work. It has to like self-generate constantly the power and power and power to give a dim light even, and thinking, oh, this is good enough light. Yeah. And we have no idea what a dim light that is. This is how a life that we have to be in control of, and all this in this falsehood, in this illusion, separate from the actual life. And we can see the magic and the beauty and the magnificence and the miracle of life in front of us all the time. The fact that we actually breathe in and out itself is such an incredible design. And what happens just through this simple action of this going in and coming back, the things that happen in these hundreds of billions of cells inside, you know, the oxygen going in and then cleaning up and things come. Isn't that not miraculous? Yes. That's the power of life. What difficulty do we have to believe in that?
And as I hear you say this, it's really this whole power of giving and receiving. You know, it's the giving and receiving. In the beginning, you talked about the child and parent relationship. You know, in order for a child to know how to have that sort of relationship, that foundation had to be laid. So there's a give and receive there. There's a give and receive in the air that we breathe. Yeah. You know, the flowers, the trees that give us the oxygen, and we exhale, and that carbon dioxide is then given to the trees. You know, it's all this act of giving and receiving. If we could just understand how powerful that is, and it exists. Beautiful. It is here. It exists. We can't fight against it. And when we do, we reap the effects of that.
Right. Yeah. Right. We destroy the balance. That was perfect explanation.
Yes. Yeah.
This is the whole dynamic of the universe. Yeah. This reciprocal relationship.
Yes. Yes.
Nothing exists without it.
If I may add one item to, although what you describe is so dynamic, right? If somebody sit outside and look at it, in some ways they say, oh, well, it's always been like this. That's just the way the system works and all that. But there's also this other dimension to life, that it adapts to changes that we don't even know. Like you can go depth of the ocean where there's no light at all. We all depend on light to survive and all that. And you go this depth of the ocean, nobody could ever think of life can exist there. And you have these other creatures that are adapted to that. So as our environment changes, this is another light of hope for myself, is that, hey, don't try to hold on to what you think the life is. Just go with it. When that sun goes, there's this other heat that comes and, let you kind of live. So it's a very dynamic. And as long as you accept to be part of that system, like what you were saying, as long as you let the light is connected to you and you're not trying to generate your own light, it goes.
This is a good point, because this will eventually make it free from the fear that you were talking before to achieve something, you know,
Yeah.
what you wanted to achieve. There is a fear at the beginning of letting go.